Hi, my name is Kelly Lorraine, and welcome to my series, Learning Tarot for Self-Development. In today's video, we're going to talk about something a little bit nerve-wracking, and that is shuffling your tarot cards or oracle cards. How many of you have ever watched a tarot or oracle card reading and thought to yourself, whoa, they shuffle like a pro, and I don't know if I can do that? Trust me when I tell you, you absolutely can. It just takes time, energy, and practice. You know, something that I've loved about doing this tarot series or learning tarot for self-development is that it's taken me back in time to reminisce about my journey and all the things that I learned along the way, hence why I want to share them with you. There was a tarot reader that I used to watch very consistently, and I think the reason I watched her is because she was professional. You know, I knew when I was watching those videos, she meant business. It was the way she picked up the cards. It was the way she shuffled. It was the way she looked at the camera. Her body language just exuded confidence. But there was something that she said many years ago that still stays with me today. And I'm curious about your opinion. So in the comments, please let me know your thoughts. She said that the shuffle is everything. If someone starts a reading and their shuffle is off or it feels bad, it's a turn off. Now, to some extent, I can understand this because, like I said a moment ago, why did I like her readings? She was strong, confident, said it like it is, and when she shuffled, I knew she was professional and meant business. I don't think I would stop watching a reading necessarily because somebody had a bad shuffle. I wouldn't be judging in that aspect. But I think subconsciously, we look at the confidence of a person in front of us. I mean, it kind of is like our day-to-day when we're out and about, going to stores, going to work. We're looking at people whether we think we are or not. We are looking at the confidence that is exuded towards us. You know, there's that age-old expression that says, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that an initial shuffle is important or integral to the reading itself? Remember that we all have to start somewhere, and there is no such thing as perfection or learning how to shuffle perfectly by the next morning. You know, I think there's so many promises out there of instant gratification. Learn tarot in 30 minutes, learn tarot in 2 hours or 24 hours. I'm going to teach you to shuffle like a pro today. And look, I'm going to give you my best effort, my best intentions, but I do want you to take it easy on yourself. This takes time. Now, mastering your shuffle is essential down the line because this is all about you building a relationship between you and your cards. So it's not so much about mastering the shuffle, it's about mastering your confidence, mastering your energy and self-development. This whole series is all about self-development, and we know that it's a process. We have to trust the process. We have to go through the highs and the lows, learn from the experiences, and push ourselves forward even when it's difficult. I was a high school teacher for 18 years in a classroom, and I kind of approach this like school. We graduate from grade to grade to grade. We better our skills every opportunity we get. And again, we're gonna have highs and we're gonna have lows, but I wanna remind you, if you're a parent or you're around children consistently, you know that children are resilient. They never stop. Isn't it amazing as adults how we get in so much fear and we forget what it's actually like to be a child, or we forget what it is like to make mistakes? We're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're gonna fumble the cards. It's kind of interesting that I'm using the term who shuffles your cards in regards to this tarot for self-development. It's actually a philosophical question that I've asked many people in interviews and in live Zoom sessions. Ultimately, from a physical standpoint, you shuffle your cards. Now, philosophically, who shuffles your cards in other circumstances? Is it God? Is it the universe? Is it source? Is it your friends, your family? There's so many things that could influence how the cards are shuffled in your day-to-day life. Now, ultimately, we're doing our own tarot and oracle readings or learning how to do them because we want to be able to shuffle our cards and work on ourselves, hence self-development. I love the idea that you want to learn tarot and oracle cards. Notice how I said earlier that I had a connection to the tarot reader that I was watching. That's really important in learning, having a good mentor. I'm so blessed that I have a wonderful online family that joins me every day on my lives, on my social media platforms, or does Zoom sessions with me, and they watch me and learn from me in my practice. I'm so glad that I could bring this all to you and build a library of knowledge and information that can help you grow too. So obviously you were inspired by someone in the first place to learn tarot. I can't imagine that you just picked up a deck of cards without any kind of influence, having never seen a reading or been gifted a deck by someone. So ultimately, you did start with a connection. I want you to continue that connection with the deck of cards that you've chosen. If you haven't seen my previous video about how to choose a tarot deck, I would have a look at it. From a historical perspective, it's always been said that you should be given a deck. However, the modern perspective is that you can purchase any deck you choose. Sometimes I think we're afraid to choose a deck or make a decision because we think somehow that if we don't identify with that deck, everything is lost, and that's simply not true. If you do feel intimidated about choosing a tarot or oracle deck, or you just can't seem to choose, here's an exercise that you can try without a card deck. I'm a believer that you can use any book in your home as an oracle deck. For example, one of my favorite books is The Alchemist. Now, if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It is life-changing. Now, I taught this book to my grade 12 students when I was still teaching in a classroom, and I did a really fun activity with them. At first, they were like, whoa, what is she up to? This doesn't seem like a normal English class. I approached it with a very energetic perspective. I told them, take the book, put it in your hands, feel the cover, flip the pages, take it all in. Don't be shy to take your time with building a connection with your book. Now, it doesn't matter if you haven't read the entire book. I'm a believer that you take the book, build that connection, and when you're ready, you open it up to whatever page you think you want to open to. Write down the page number, read through it, and find any quotes that resonate with you. Even if in the moment they don't make sense, maybe down the road they will. I had the students follow this for the next month or so that we read this book, and in the end, they had a little library of quotes and thoughts and feelings that they could reflect on at any point. Try this technique with any book of your choice and let me know in the comments if it works for you. So let's apply the same technique to a deck of cards. I'm going to take this deck, I'm going to hold it in my hands. I'm going to take a second, I'm going to think about it, maybe close my eyes, but essentially, I'm just going to build a connection. I'm going to feel the texture of the cards, feel the edges. Some are rough, some are satin. It all depends on the deck that you've chosen, but essentially, you need to know how it feels. Now, some decks are larger than others. Some hands are larger than others. I have pretty small hands, and so therefore, I want the deck to feel comfortable. I don't want to feel like I'm stretching way too much. I want to feel that there's some ease with the cards in my hands. Going back to that video that I referenced earlier about how to choose a tarot or oracle deck, I think something that I forgot to mention actually is the dimensions of the cards, because ultimately you want to feel at ease, you want to feel comfortable. Now, this deck that I have in my hands here, I've used umpteen times, not only for myself, but with my clients. So I feel that I have a very good connection to this deck. And now, it's not just the texture or what it feels like in your hands. It's all about your energy that current moment. How do you feel? Are you happy? Are you excited? Are you energetic? Are you at peace? Are you calm? Or are your energies and emotions running wild that day? Yes, this all has an impact on your shuffling and on the reading that you're going to get. Just think about when you get up in the morning and you're rushing to get to work. If you're frazzled, if you're in a rush and you're running from one side of the bedroom or the kitchen to the other, that's the same type of thing in a reading. If you're trying to rush the cards, when you're trying to rush the cards or you're not really nice to your cards, then all of a sudden you're going to have the cards drop all over the place, you're going to feel unsettled, and maybe the reading that you'll get in response is not exactly what you're looking for. On the other hand, it is going to reflect the energy that you're putting into the cards. That kind of leads me to something that I was going to talk about later, but I think I'm going to address it right now. Disclaimer. I'm saying this with best of intentions, and I'm not here to criticize anybody else's shuffling. I do stay in my own lane. But I do notice this trend where people want to smash the cards. They want to be rough with the cards, and the cards are going flying everywhere for this dramatic effect. Personally, I'm not a believer in smashing the cards, banging the cards all over the place. I don't think I need to do that in order to show that I'm a good tarot reader or that I'm confident with my cards. I believe that cards deserve respect. And when we're calm, cool, collected, we're going to get the best type of readings. If I'm smashing these cards disrespectfully or trying to put out a dramatic effect for my audience, that actually takes away from my authenticity. I don't need to be dramatic. I just need to be myself. And the same goes for a private reading that you're doing within your own home or even with your friends and family. You're there to be authentically you. Now, you might argue and say, it is authentically me to be dramatic and maybe I want to smash my cards. Maybe so. But I would like to think that when we build respect with our cards, right? We give the respect, we get it in return. It's almost like when we're in a classroom or we're out in the day-to-day. I like to think of this analogy. If I walk into my classroom and I say to my students that I demand their respect before I give them anything, how likely are they to actually show me that respect? Not very likely. If I walk into my classroom and I say, let's build this connection together, let's build this educational environment together, more than likely, we're going to have an equal giving and receiving for the most part. I go live frequently on my social media platforms, and this is also something I experience. Think of your experiences in a live, whether that's on TikTok, YouTube, or Instagram. And we all know that there can be trolls. These are people who come in and say things to get your attention, try to poke the bear a little bit, or to make themselves known. If my energy is frazzled and I react to every little thing that they say or that they do, I'm going to interrupt my energy and my reading. And that is their intention. If my energy is calm, cool, collected, and I don't invite anything to disrupt my peace, then my energy will dictate how the session is going to go. So I'm very proud to say that in my online platforms, I really don't have any trolls. And if I do get anybody that comes in and wants to poke the bear, as I said, I don't give it any attention. I find ways to move past it. Always remember, your energy is what dictates how everything is going to go. So if your energy is good, your intentions are good, then there's really nothing to worry about. And if you don't feel confident in your shuffling, again, practice. Practice makes perfect. You will find a way to get your own style of shuffling. Building a connection with your deck is not just about holding it and feeling the cards. I mean, that is very integral, but I'm going to give you another tip. When you first get the deck and you take it right out of the box, fresh, untouched, I want you to take the time to actually sit down and go through each card individually. You know, it's so important to look at the images, take the time, study, look at the colors, see what could be in the background. How many times have you watched a movie and you saw something new every time you watched it? That's because you took the time to rewatch that movie. You must have really liked it. So next thing you know, you see something you didn't see before. It's the same with my tarot cards. You wouldn't believe how many times I've used a deck. And then all of a sudden I go, hey, wait a minute. What's that in the background? There's an owl. There's this. There's that. And so I want you to start building that connection by essentially looking at your cards, looking at all the fine details. Now, I know that might seem like tedious work, but honestly, it's a great step in building your confidence with the cards, your knowledge of the cards, and helping you with your own development. Another resource to consider is, of course, the book that comes with your cards. Now, not all books are created equally. Some are going to be very detailed and some are not. Take the time to read through the book, you know. Again, it's always important to know the meanings of the cards as intended by the author. In the case of tarot, there's a pretty consistent story, and that's the Fool's Journey, going from card 0 in the Major Arcana to card 21. Now, I'm going to go through each one of those cards individually at a later date, but in the meantime, I want you to remember that learning the story, learning the initial meanings is important to you. Again, you're not going to learn them overnight. You can't force it. It will happen through practice, energy, and consistency. But essentially, that's another way that you can build a relationship with your deck. Now let's get back to the shuffling. I think the first type of shuffle that you would encounter or that maybe you would think of is the overhand shuffle. Now, you don't have to do anything too much with this. This is simply just playing around with small amounts of cards. Nothing has to be complicated. I would just say put the deck in your hands and go like this. Now, I should tell you that you're going to start with your non-dominant hand. This is my left hand. This is where I put the cards. With my right hand, this is where I go an overhand shuffle. I go forwards, I go backwards, and as I get more confident, I do this. You know what I think one of the tips is that we often ignore in shuffling cards is the role of the thumb. If you notice, a lot of the times with shufflers, that their thumb is what kind of pulls the card. Now, sometimes that's what causes like the cards to like flip out. See, there's a card that flipped over. Now the world card, there you go. Maybe that's a sign or a message for somebody today to let go of an old cycle and move to the next level. Now I'm going to flip that card back around, but you'll notice that the thumb is an integral part of the shuffle. If you're intimidated still by the shuffle and you feel like the cards are kind of just flying out or they're dropping, another thing you can do is actually to split the deck. So you can lay the deck flat on a table and you can go make 2 or 3 piles and then basically put them all back in. That is a way of shuffling as well. Another type of shuffle is the casino shuffle, and that's the one we think of in regards to casinos, professional card players, or even tarot readers that really want to show you their shuffling skills. You know, this is the one where we take the deck and we basically put them in half and we kind of put them down on the table, and then like each card goes into the other, and then we end up with having one deck. And you're welcome to do that or practice that, of course. One of the things that I find is that yes, it looks really cool, but it can also really dent and bend your cards. The truth is that there's some cardstock that is really great, thick, professional, and then there's some that feel really cheap and flimsy. It can alter the way your cards feel, meaning you can get some massive bends or just dents that you don't really like in your cards. I mean, I don't necessarily anyways, you may. I'm not looking to bend my cards in any particular way just because I want to do a casino shuffle. However, if that's something you're into, then absolutely go ahead and shuffle to your heart's content. Now, here's another tip for you, and I don't even know what this shuffle is even called, but it's a very simple one. If you don't want to do the overhand, or if you don't want to do the casino shuffle, or you don't want to split the decks, you can just do this. You can take the deck and you can just take pieces and do this. Start this way if this is simple for you. There's nothing wrong with this. You're still moving cards around. You're still randomizing the cards. Now, as a side note, this is the size of deck that I think is probably pretty standard. Now, there are other cards out there that are bigger. I mean, you can see the size difference right here. Here's another deck that's even bigger. Now, I'm reminded of a story when I went to go visit my mentor. She's not a card reader per se, but she does energetic healings. And part of those sessions is taking a card from an angel card deck. She said, Kelly, here, take this deck, shuffle it. And I was like, okay. And I was afraid to shuffle because the cards felt really big in my hands. Now, as you can see, this is probably like the size of my hand. So it's not that easy for me to grab this deck. It's quite a stretch and it doesn't feel comfortable. And so something she told me at the time was, why not take it this way? Because look how much more space I have and more like freedom with my hand. She said, of course, non-dominant hand, take your dominant hand and shuffle this way. I would think that we want to be professional and do this. Now, I've gotten better at this, obviously, because I do it professionally and I've been practicing for years. But I remember a time when like I couldn't really do this that well. And this did feel easier. You know, if you like to take things slow and methodical, then do it like this. Now let's take a card, why not? It says brilliance. And you know what I love about this card? It says discover your sparkle. Whichever way you sparkle, own it. So we've talked about shuffling, but I think there's an important factor to this. What are we thinking about when we're shuffling? Are we actually thinking about the shuffle itself? I don't think that's what we should be focusing on, because what is the purpose of a tarot or oracle card reading? It's to get the energies. Now, we've talked about the actual shuffle itself and the techniques that you might want to use, but we haven't talked about what you should be doing while you're shuffling. You know, eventually shuffling becomes second nature. meaning you don't even think about it. I don't even think about it. I just sort of go into my headspace and my spiritual side to think of a question or channel some energy. So what I tend to do is I close my eyes, or I just sit here and I shuffle. I just shuffle. Every day I'm shuffling. Sorry, I had to add that in there. I just kind of shuffle. I think of my question and I don't rush. I think that's the one thing that gets in our way, right? It's rushing everything. That's why I always say, trust the process. Trust the process, Kelly. Now, if you don't know that joke, let me explain. When I was going through my spiritual reawakening, now I say reawakening because I believe we're born awakened. It's just that life gets in the way and suddenly we lose ourselves. I was going through my spiritual reawakening, and of course I was sparked by somebody, and I was chasing, and all these things were happening in my life, but they just weren't falling into place the way I wanted them to. And one day he walked out my front door, looked over his shoulder, and he said, "Trust the process, Kelly." Now, admittedly, I didn't hear it that way, even though that's exactly how it was said. I kind of joke around and say, "Trust the process, Kelly, trust the process, Kelly, trust the process, Kelly," because honestly, it annoyed me to have to trust the process. And I know that it annoys everybody else as well. Trusting the process means we've got to be patient. And patience is something that so many of us lack. Now, throughout this spiritual journey, I have really learned the art of trusting the process and having patience. So when I'm shuffling my cards, I really do take my time. And this is why, again, I'm not a believer of smashing and banging the cards and getting into this like rough and tumble with them, because I want to respect them. I believe that this is an art form. This is not meant to be, me putting on a show, because ultimately my authenticity matters. That's up to you, what you like to do, but that's how I feel. So when you're shuffling your cards in whatever way you want, think about your question, think about your intentions, think about the energy that you're channeling, that you're taking in, and trusting your intuition. Now that brings up a really great point. Do you trust yourself? Let me know in the comments. Do you trust yourself? There's a famous line that I love that says, "The longest journey is from the head to the heart." Now, the brain, yeah, it's intelligent, of course, but it also lies to us. It listens to the emotional pain body that says, "Are you sure? Are you sure you can have this? Really? You're just like your mother. You're just like your father." And all of a sudden, all that interferes with the heart. Now, I'm not talking about romance, ooh baby, passionate romance. I'm talking about the intuition, the electromagnetic field of your heart. You have to trust with your heart. That's why the talk about brain and heart coherence is so important. Now, I'm not saying you can't do tarot readings if you don't feel like you have brain or heart coherence. I'm just saying you have to learn to trust yourself and not be in fear of making mistakes. There are no mistakes. They're learning experiences. And maybe this is the cheesy teacher in me that says, we're lifelong learners. We're always going to be tested. We're always going to be in the school of life. Things are not just going to miraculously just stop one day and all of a sudden we're going to be living in absolute joy and bliss. It takes work to maintain that. And it takes work to work through all the old traumas, triggers, and hurts that can get in the way of our reading. So let me talk about something that actually is really important to me anyways. And it's an observation that I've made in doing this professionally. A lot of people tell me, I'm guided by source. I'm guided by God. What I downloaded is absolute. And I do understand that, and I believe you. But let me give you something to think about. Yes, whatever you download in the moment, you're going to assume that it is true. And that's okay. And you're welcome to communicate that to yourself or to anyone that you're doing a reading with. But also understand that because energy is fluid, it can change at a moment's notice. That's why when you're shuffling your cards and doing readings, you may get one set of cards today and a completely different set of energies tomorrow. And that's perfectly fine, because there's going to be a progression. There's going to be an up. There's going to be a down. There's going to be a change along the way. So just because you get a download from source, God, the universe, doesn't mean that that's going to stay that way. What I once thought was true many years ago, yeah, it was true at the time, but it changed as I got better, as I moved through this process. as I got better with my self-development. Let me give you an analogy. If you were writing a math exam and your teacher told you to find the answer or solve an equation, and you simply just put the answer right at the bottom, you didn't show any work. You said, this is the answer because I know the answer, because that is what I was told by God, by spirit, by my knowledge, whatever. Your teacher is going to ask you to show your work. So in a spiritual sense, I believe that showing your work means you've taken your guess, your hypothesis, or the answer that you've downloaded, and you're going to put that into motion. You're going to test it. You're going to go throughout life, day to day, and see how that works for you. You're showing your work. Sometimes you're going to discover that you were right all along. You knew the answer because you intuitively believed it. You downloaded it. You got it. And that's wonderful. At the same time, though, you may go through the process and realize that there were mistakes along the way. Now, again, they're not necessarily mistakes, they're learning experiences, but maybe you made a miscalculation, or maybe you went one way with something when really you should have gone another, or you missed something along the way, and that's okay. But it means you're checking your work and you're recognizing that energy is fluid, and ultimately it can bring you to an even better place than you ever imagined. Just because you believe something is true in the moment doesn't mean that it will continue to be that way in the future. That's the beauty of learning cards. It's understanding energy, it's understanding people, and understanding growth and personal self-development. So hopefully you realize how important shuffling is to your practice. Now, look, there's my answer. Yes, it's integral. This just popped over. It's the Sun card, the happiest card in the deck, and it's also about forward motion. So essentially, this is all about you moving yourself forward, getting better as you go, and I'm here for the ride, and I thank you for that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you found it helpful, please like, comment, subscribe. It really means the world to me. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I'm always excited to hear your feedback, read your questions, and basically use all of that to make more videos. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, have fun shuffling.